All three tiers of the Antrim Hurling Championship are at the knockout stage now, and Sunday will see the semi-finals of the senior and intermediate levels and the final of the junior championship, so we'll take some time to discuss the matches, how the teams got there and how the games might go. At senior level, there's a double header at Dunsilla with Dunloy continuing their quest for 3 in a row against St John's, while before that Dunloy and Rossa renewed their rivalry with Cushendall. For me, the game of the weekend is the first one up, as Rossa and Cushendall throw in at 12:30. Rossa reached this point by winning all three games to finish top of their group. They started with a 6-point victory at home to Ballycastle before making the trip to Glengarmley to beat St Enda's by 16 points. That meant they faced a trip to Ahoghill to take on the Shamrocks. With both sides having won their first two games, the winner would get a bye to the semi-finals, while the runner-up would face a quarter-final against third place from the other group. While most will have been expecting a home win, Rossa led most of the way and recorded a 4-point win over Ahoghill to show that their strong performances last season weren't a fluke and that they are ready to return to a county final for the first time since 2004. Cushendall's campaign started off with a tough trip to take on the county champions Dunloy. In what turned out to be a thriller, they secured a draw late on thanks to a fine effort from Christy McNaughton. St John's were up next and they secured a 10-point victory at home before they scored 6 goals and a 19-point win over Tierno Grandlestown. Despite going undefeated, they weren't as free scoring as Dunloy, which meant they had to play a quarter final against St Enda's, who had beat Ballycastle in their final group game to reach the knockout rounds. Cushendall proved themselves too strong in the end, securing a 7-point win to set up this semi-final. These sides met in the quarter-finals last year, and on that occasion Rossa defeated the Dáil by a point to reach the semi-finals, and they'll have every right to feel confident that they can repeat the feat this year. This is Rossa's best team since they won the county final in 2004, and having defeated Cushendall and Ahoghill and lost to Dunloy in the semi-finals by a solitary score last year, they will have every right to think they can go one better this time. On the other hand, Cushendall generally win semi-finals. Last year was the first time a county final was played without Cushendall since 2012. They have experience in these games, and when the whistle goes on Sunday, there will be no doubt whatsoever about what they have to do to get through. For me, this game is as close to 50-50 as it gets. Cushendall's experience might just see them through, but there's honestly so little between these two sides that either outcome wouldn't really be deemed a surprise. In the second semi-final, defending champions Dunloy take on St John's, a team they've already defeated in this year's championship. Dunloy's campaign began with that draw at home to Cushendall before they recorded a monstrous 43-point win over Randalstown. In their final group game, they recorded a 7-point win away to Sunday's opponent St John's. That was good enough to secure top spot in the group and a bye right through to the semi-finals. St John's are the only team in the semi-finals to have tasted defeat so far in this year's championship. They got off to a great start with an 8-point win over Randalstown, but they followed that up with back-to-back defeats against their fellow semi-finalists Cushendall and Dunloy. The Dáil beat them by 10 and Dunloy beat them by 7, but fortunately their win against Randalstown meant they would be through to play a quarter-final against Ahoghill. In the game against Ahoghill, St John's gained revenge for their defeat in the championship semi-final last year when Donald Nugent's heroic 3-3 despite a broken elbow wasn't enough to get past the Shamrocks. This time St John's done enough and edged a classic by 2 points in Port Glenone. St John's will have taken a lot from that win against Ahoghill, but I think it's fair to say that Dunloy will be favourites to win this match. They're the team to beat, having won the last 2 and 3 of the last 4 Antrim championships. They've already beat St John's away from home in this championship, and in a semi-final against the team they know how to beat, it would be a genuine surprise to see them slip up here, although they shouldn't look past St John's as they've already shown that they can overturn the odds once this year. In the Intermediate Championship, both games start at 2 p.m, with Cluny Gales Ahoghill and Creggan and Carey playing in Randalstown, while Cushendun play Carey Foz in Armoy. Ahoghill reached this stage with a record of 4 wins and a draw from their 5 games to top Group 1. They started with an 11-point win over Glenravels before they beat Gortnamona by 20 points. Ahoghill were then held to a draw by Glenarth, but they weren't going to be denied top spot and secured it thanks to a 3-point win away to Carey, and then finished with a 3-point victory over St Gall's. Their opponents Creggan reached the semi-finals thanks to 3 wins from their 4 group matches. A 10-point win over Sarsfields was followed by a 15-point win over Clough Mills. A 4-point loss to Cushendun put pressure on their final match against St Paul's, but in the end they ran out 24-point winners to secure their place in the last four. Ahoghill have had a great season and they'll be favourites to return to the intermediate final this year. Defeated by Randallstown in last year's decider, Cluny Gaels have gone through the league and the championship undefeated so far, with a league draw against Sarsfields and their championship draw with Glenarm the only times they've failed to win in league or championship. While the league isn't always a good indicator, it tends to be better outside the top divisions as the panels are less impacted by the loss of county players. Creggan disappointed in the league, finishing second bottom of 2B, but they bounced back well to reach this stage of the championship. However, Ahoghill's experience of reaching the final last year and good form this season will see most observers expect them to win. In the other semi-final, Cushendun come into the game with a perfect record. Cloughmills were defeated by 13 points in their opener before they beat St Paul's by 11. Their last two games were tighter affairs, but they still managed to come out on the right side, beating Creggan by 4 points and Sarsfields by 5, to at least earn their own spot in the semi-final, with the Emmets only learning their opponents this week. Carey's route to the final came with a lot of uncertainty. They were supposed to open their campaign away to Gortnamona, but that game was originally postponed, which meant a delayed start, although it didn't seem to affect them too much as they defeated St Gall's by 5 points in their opener. Glen Rovers were defeated by 13 points before a loss to Ahoghill by 3 points saw them host Glenarm in a game where the winners would progress to the semi-finals. However, the teams couldn't be separated, and it meant that Carey would now have to win their rearranged match with Gortnamona by 25 points to pass Glenarm in points difference. Knowing what they had to do would have handed Carey an advantage, but they still needed to go out and do it, which to their credit is exactly what they did. In the end, they lifted the green flag 7 times on the way to a 43-point win, which sent them to the semi-finals and sent Glenarm into a very small band of clubs who've gone unbeaten in the championship thanks to 2 wins and 3 draws in their 5 games, but didn't do enough to reach the semi-finals. I think this semi-final's a tough one to call. Cushendun ran through their group undefeated, but I think that Group 1 might have been the tougher of the 2 groups, especially with an extra team involved. That said, I do think heading into the Gortnamona match, knowing exactly what was needed was a big advantage for Carey. It's a difficult one to call, and similar to the first senior semi-final, I'd genuinely not be surprised whatever the outcome. Finally, and if I'm honest, the game I'm most interested in is the junior final between Shane O'Neill's Glenarm and Con McGee's Glenravel, which has a 2 PM throw-in in Glenarm. The junior championship began with 8 teams, and these two were both in Group 2. Glenarm's route to the final has been an impressive one as they quite simply blew away their opponents. Glenavy were up first and they were defeated by 38 points before Sunday's opposition Glenravel were beaten by 17 points at Forsyth Park. In their final match, Glenarm caught loose again and beat St Teresa's by 37 points. They were pushed much harder in the semi-final match against Resharkin. They were 4 points down at the half but came out strong in the second half to win by 2 points and earn their place in Sunday's final. As I've already said, Glenravel were in Glenarm's group and they began with a 7-point win over St Teresa's before that 17-point loss in Glenarm. However, they bounced back well to secure a semi-final place with an 18-point win over Glenavy. In that semi-final, they were scheduled to play Lamderg, who had topped Group 1, and in a tight affair, they came out on top by a single point to set up a rematch with Glenarm. Having won so comfortably in the group stages, Glenarm will be favourites to win this one. I was at that match, and aside from a period either side of half time where they gave away a few cheap frees, Glenarm were comfortable winners. Personally, having lived in Carnlough for 13 years, I've got to know a lot of the Shane and Leeds players, probably more past than present, but I always do like to see them do well. That said, I also have family in Glenravel with my grandfather originally coming from there, so I would always look out for their results and hope that they do well also. However, I'm not going to sit in the fence in this one, and I've been pleased to see the Shane and Neil's flags around the lampposts around Carnlough, and it takes me back to a day, I can't remember whether it was 1 year or 2 years ago, and I was talking to a player, a Shane and Neil's player, on the day that they'd been just beating the championship, and he actually wasn't too disappointed because he told me on the day that there was like a lot of young players coming through, and having watched them now, it's clear to see there's a lot of very talented young players in the club, and there's no reason why they can't win this and compete at a higher level. Glenarm earned the favourites tag with the win in the group stages, but Glenravel will believe playing at a neutral venue and having a bit more experience in most areas of the pitch will help close that gap, and maybe if things go well they can tip the scales in their favour. Regardless of who wins, you can be sure it'll be a good game of hurling as both sides target the first county championship of the year.